Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do here at the Newport Aquarium.
Well, my name is David Barber. I am one of the animal exhibit supervisors here, as well as the overnight supervisor. I'm an animal trainer.
Who do you have with you?
Well, this is Hans, one of our male eastern box turtles.
What is an eastern box turtle?
Well, an eastern box turtle is a terrestrial reptile, characterized, of course, by the shell. Cold-blooded, meaning they're exothermic. They don't have an internal way of keeping their body temperature consistent, so they're reliant on the atmosphere. If it gets cold, they get cold. If it gets warm, they get warm.
What part of the world do they live?
These guys are from the United States, anywhere from Texas over to Florida to the south, and then headed north up to Michigan over to Massachusetts. A pretty broad range.
Can you explain their environment, habitat?
Eastern box turtles are they're pretty adaptable. They like a lot of different environments, anywhere from like wooded, swampy areas to grassy prairies and grasslands. But primarily, they prefer more humid and moist woodlands, forests, where there's a lot of underbrush and leaf litter.
What do they eat in the wild?
Well, in the wild, they are the epitome of omnivorous. They'll eat just about anything that they can get a hold of, from nuts and berries, meadow grains, and grasses, occasional carrion for meat protein. They'll eat just about anything, even wild mushrooms that are poisonous to humans.
What do they eat here in captivity at the Newport Aquarium?
Well, in captivity, there are commercially prepared diets for eastern box turtles, as well as a variety of different greens, fruits, and vegetables, and also occasional meat protein, usually in the form of like pinkies, small mice, things like that.
How can you tell the difference between a male and female eastern box turtle?
Well, the males, like I've got here, you can see probably the most obvious are the red eyes. Females have more of a yellow eye. This guy here, it's pretty bright red. They're also, the plastron, the bottom of the shell in the male is concave. It's indented. The females have a more highly domed carapace, the top, and the males have longer and wider tails generally. Those are probably the most common characteristics between male and female.
What is the difference between a turtle and a tortoise?
That's where it gets a little tricky with box turtles. Usually, tortoises are land-based. They cannot swim. Their legs are more like pillars, and they walk on their toes. With turtles, they're generally land and water adaptable. A lot of times, their feet are even webbed. Sea turtles, for instance, even have flippers. But their feet are flatter for swimming. Box turtles have both characteristics, both of tortoises and turtles. I've even heard some biologists refer to box turtles as honorary tortoises. If you really get down to the detail, it's all in the taxonomy, and a lot of their skeletal structure, including the skull, makes the difference between turtles and tortoises. So, this guy has characteristics of both, really, but they're considered turtles.
What is the lifespan of an eastern box turtle?
Eastern box turtles generally live pretty commonly about 30 to 40 years. 50 years is not unheard of, and there are reports of some living to be about 100 years old.
Who are their natural predators?
Natural predators for eastern box turtles, raccoons are known to invade the nests, killing the eggs off. Skunks will do that occasionally too, but primarily it's humans. Humans get in the way of box turtles. A lot of them are killed on the highway with cars that they get hit, crossing train tracks, trains, farm equipment, lawn mowers, things like that. So generally, though we're not a natural predator, humans are the most common problem for these guys.
Would an eastern box turtle make a good house pet?
Generally, no, and the reason being these guys are very slow to get to sexual maturity, And if you just take one box turtle out of the wild, you know, they typically lay hundreds of eggs and only a few of them make it to adulthood. So if you take one out of the wild, you're limiting their opportunity to reproduce, since they are so slow to sexually mature. And then on top of that, you know, taking that one out of the wild will never get to be able to reproduce. So it's really cutting back on their ability to maintain a population in the wild.
Great. Could you bring him a little closer to the camera and get a close-up view of his red eyes? Perfect.